Coming to you from the Deep South, this is the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast. High-impact leadership is not reserved for leaders, and it has nothing to do with your position, title, or rank. However, it does have everything to do with your character. It's time to climb to the next level and beyond, personally and professionally. Now, let's start making it happen with your host, Mack Story.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast today. Today, we're on part 4 in my 30-part series on blue collar leadership and culture, the 5 components for building high-performance teams. And if you haven't listened to the previous episodes, I highly recommend you go back and get started with episode 179, where you learn about why I wrote this book and the big picture purpose of this book. But either way, today we're on chapter 4. Chapter 4 is titled Becoming a Sought-After Employer. And it's pretty easy to get leaders to buy into that. Regardless of how they lead, they understand they're going to be more competitive in their market and in their industry if they're a sought-after employer. So what I mean by becoming a sought-after employer is actually what I have the subtitle of this chapter titled as. So becoming a sought-after employer is the chapter title. The subtitle is People Who Don't Work There Want to Work There. That's what it means to become a sought-after employer. People who don't already work in your organization have a very strong desire to work in your organization. And I know from my 30 plus years of working in blue collar industries and supporting blue collar industries, there's a lot of blue collar industries out there where there's not a very strong desire for people to come work at their organization. Many people work in the organization, but it's more because they have to, because those individuals haven't often grown and developed themselves and created better options. So they have to work where they have to, wherever they can find a job. And then there's a lot of leaders who don't lead very well, so they have to accept people, whoever they can find, that wants a job. Not all organizations are like that by no means, but there's a lot of them out there that are exactly like that, blue collar and white collar. This is Blue Collar Leadership and Culture book is all about helping the top leader understand how to become the sought-after employer of choice. I'm going to add that on there. That's actually next week's episode, becoming an employer of choice. But I'm separating them. In the book, I separate them so that you can understand. But ultimately, that's the goal, becoming a sought-after employer of choice. But to help you understand what it means, I want to break it into 2 components. So today we're on the first component, becoming a sought-after employer. I want to share with you a quote by Charles Koch, K-O-C-H. You may have heard of him. You may not. You may like him. You may not. I don't care. I ain't into politics. But what I know is the Koch brothers built a $100+ billion organization. That doesn't happen by accident. And so I've read some of his books and some really good books. And I've taken some of the quotes you'll see. There's several in this book from Charles Koch. Again, I don't care about politics. I care less. It doesn't matter who president is or isn't. I'm going to do the same exact thing that I always do. That's grow and develop leaders and grow and develop people. So I ain't here to be political. But this is a quote from Charles Koch. Leaders set the standard, both by how they lead and by what they do. They are the guardians of and must be held accountable for the culture. It's just like I said back in chapter 2, the foundation of culture is the top leader's values. And that's what Charles Koch saying, kind of in a different way. The leader must be held accountable for the culture. So as we dive into this book, we get started into this series, I want you to know when I'm talking right here, what do I mean? Becoming a sought-after employer means great people who don't work at your organization become aware of and are attracted to your organization. And I said this earlier, and it's most important, they have a strong desire to work there. So let me break it down a little further. When I say great people who don't work at your organization have a strong desire, very strong desire to work there, what do I mean by great people? I mean top talent. What do I mean by top talent? I mean people who not only have exceptional, well-developed competency, experience, knowledge, abilities, that sort of stuff, relative to what you need them to do in your industry or in their job. They've got that, but also they're people who have exceptional, well-developed character. And with character, I'm talking about integrity, humility, being trustworthy, being responsible. That's what top talent is. They have high degree of competency and a high degree of character. That's top talent. Low impact leaders, they think top talent just means competency. They're highly skilled at doing the job. See, low impact leaders, they don't even look for character. They're not even concerned with character. They're also not typically or probably ever leading an organization that is a sought after employer within their industry. They may be getting good results. They may be millionaires and billionaires, but within their industry, they may not be the sought after employer. The only reason they could be is because no one in their industry is doing the type of stuff that I'm telling you about. If no one in your industry is doing the kind of people development, leadership development, personal development of the people in their organization, again, remember, if no one's doing that, no one has to do that. But the moment a high impact leader steps on the stage and creates an organization like no other within their industry, they are definitely going to become the sought after employer within that industry. And then everyone else can either do it and attempt to compete, or they're going to just get left behind. They may still be in business, but top talent within that industry or top talent coming to that industry is going to go to the sought after employer of choice. That's what's going to happen with that deal. So when it comes to becoming a sought after employer, can't say it enough, culture counts. And it counts a lot. Culture doesn't just happen. Not high impact culture. A bad culture, a culture that people don't want to work in, that just happens. The way you do that is you don't have any leadership development. You don't have any training or development around character. You just hire people who know how to do the job, or you hire people and train them how to do the job. And whatever they value character-wise, you just put all those values of everybody you bring into the organization in a big old pot. That's called the organization. And you just stir it up, see what happens. That kind of culture does happen by accident. But high impact culture is created, good or bad. When I'm saying bad, I mean it's really not being created, right? But culture doesn't just happen. It's created, good or bad, by the everyday choices leaders and their teams are making. So even when I was saying a minute ago, it just happens. It does just happen, but it's based on choices. And if there's no guidance, no leadership development, it's going to be based on the choices of the values of all the people who are just mixed into the pot. Good or bad, culture is created by the everyday choices leaders and their teams are making. And I always like to say this, you and your team, you can't climb to the top of the mountain with base camp character. It's the same way as climbing a real mountain. If you were going to go climb Mount Everest, the character it'll take you to get to base camp ain't close to the character it's going to take you to get to the top of Mount Everest. You're going to have to operate at a completely different level of character to overcome the adversity that you're going to face, to even be prepared. You don't have to prepare a lot to get to base camp. right? I guarantee you, I probably could go get to base camp today based on just who I am and how I've led myself up to this point. I'm in fairly decent shape, but I promise you I couldn't get to the top. I might have base camp character, but I ain't got make it to the summit character yet, because there's a whole lot of work I'd have to do, and I'd have to be aligned. My values would have to be aligned with that mission. I'd have to have an interest to even go there, first of all, to do the work, to develop myself, to be able to even attempt it. But it's the same principle at play relative to developing a high impact culture. It doesn't take a lot of character to just become part of a culture. Meaning a company that doesn't do leadership development, to become a part of it, pretty much all you got to do is have the competency or be willing to learn. And that may be the team that a leader has who discovers this book. And then the leader may read this book and say, hey, I got to get better, and I got to help my team get better. And then they're going to find out there's people on the team that have only base camp character, and they don't want to develop any higher level of character. If the leader climbs the mountain, the only people who are going to come are those people who want to develop a higher degree of character. People with base camp character, they're going to get left behind. Not simply because they're bad people. They may not even be bad people. They just don't want to take the journey. So we're going to have to leave them behind. Don't do it on the first day that you start transforming your culture. Try to get everybody to come. Try to help everybody. Let everybody know everybody's invited to take this journey. And if you don't want to take it, we're going to miss you. But it's going to be up to you. So becoming a sought-after employer, it's not about doing something different. That's a mistake a lot of leaders make. They talk to me or they get us to come speak, and up front, they just think they got to do something different. Like maybe even buying these books or some of our other books, handing them out to their people, maybe leading book studies, having us come in and speak, bringing in the folks, put them in a room, we speak to them, those sort of things. That's doing something different. A lot of leaders think that's all they have to do to transform the culture. They got to start doing something different. That's easy. Those things I just told you, that's so easy. Spend a little money, spend a little time. There you go. It's done. Easy. That's not what cultural transformation is about. Not the kind I'm writing about in this book. Remember, this book is not just to help you develop a better culture. This book is to help you become the, capital THE, the sought after employer in your industry. If you read this book and you just cherry pick a few things, yeah, your organization can get better, but you're not going to become the sought after employer of choice unless you're taking this book, doing at a minimum what's in it, but you're going to have to go far beyond what's in this book. This book's going to lead you to other books. Those books are going to lead you to other books. You're going to discover books on your own that are going to lead you to other books. Or it could be videos or audios. I say books kind of generally means however you learn. Books are a big deal in my life. And I know books are a big deal in any high-impact leader's life. High-impact leaders are high-impact readers. Jimmy Collins, that I mentioned, former COO and president of Chick-fil-A for nearly 33 years, that I was telling you about in the previous episode, a personal friend and mentor of mine. Jimmy's whole adult life, he's read 100 books a year. And the last time I talked to him, he still does it. 100 books a year. He was Truett Cathy's number 2. Assuming Truett Cathy's number 1, Jimmy Collins is number 2. Truett Cathy was the founder. Jimmy Collins became the president, COO. Together, those two built Chick-fil-A from startup to mega billion-dollar company. Though Truett passed a while back, Jimmy retired in 2001, but they laid the foundation and left a legacy. that the team, the family, the operators, the team members, everybody's continuing that legacy, moving it forward. I don't think I've ever, probably nobody has ever lately seen Chick-fil-A advertising that they're hunting people. They don't hunt people. They attract top talent. Top talent's waiting to come in. They grow and develop their people. Probably most of the people who get hired at Chick-fil-A are referred by someone within Chick-fil-A, because who we are is who we attract. So anyone who's been at Chick-fil-A long enough, that means they have the character to fit the culture. So anyone within the organization, when they have an opening, odds are they're referring someone that they know, and they just keep growing and growing, because who we are is who we attract. That's what I'm trying to help you do for your organization. But you can't just do something different. If all you're willing is to do something different, you ain't going to make it. You might get better, but you ain't going to make it, because you got to become something different. And then you have to motivate and inspire others to do the same thing. People throughout your organization have to become something different. And all of them are not going to do that. Some of them will, some of them won't. But the ones who do, those who do and those who stay, are going to be the ones who start helping you attract top talent, the right people, help you grow and develop other people. It's going to take a while, because if you've got an organization already functioning, already operating, and you've never done this type of development, you're basically starting from scratch. But the organization is already underway if you think about it like a ship. I'm not teaching you here how to build a ship. I'm basically teaching you how to rebuild a ship while it's carrying out a mission across the ocean. It's underway. Because you're not going to shut down your business and rebuild it. You gotta transform this culture while the business is in operation. It's not easy. You either do it though, or you don't do it. I'm teaching you in this book and in this series how to do it. Right now, we still focus on the why to do it. The first 5-6 chapters are really on why to do it. You got to know this about becoming a sought-after employer. Becoming a sought-after employer is the end result. It's not the starting point. Habit 2, if you've ever read or heard me talk about the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, written by Dr. Stephen Covey. Habit 2 is begin with the end in mind. That's what chapter 4 right here is about. I'm helping you understand how to begin with the end in mind. The end is becoming the sought-after employer of choice within your industry. But how do you become the sought-after employer? It's that second half. You have to become an employer of choice. And we're going to talk about that in next week's episode. But this whole book, once we get past chapter 6, the whole rest of this book is how to help you become a sought-after employer of choice. And again, the key is becoming an employer of choice. Because becoming an employer of choice is what allows you to become and is the foundation for you to become the sought-after employer in your industry. So I'm going to wrap up today's episode with another quote from Simon Sinek. I have a lot of quotes from Simon in my quote file, full of thousands and thousands of quotes from reading and listening to audios and things like that. So I'm going to wrap up this chapter, Becoming a Sought-After Employer, this quote by Simon Sinek. In a culture of strong character, the people inside the company will feel protected by their leaders and feel that their colleagues have their backs. In a culture of weak character, the people will feel that any protection they have comes primarily from their own ability to manage the politics, promote their own successes, and watch their own backs. And that's the culture that I grew up in primarily. The first 20 years of my career, and I was working in manufacturing. First 10 years, I was frontline entry-level machine operator, operating CNC lathes, mills and drills and gear shapers and And then I started learning to kind of moved into engineering type positions and started doing drafting and drawing, doing process drawings, chuck setup sheets, things like that, tooling sheets. And also was doing CNC programming of all these about 70 different pieces of equipment. And then worked my way up and became a cost estimation engineer, lean manufacturing coordinator, lean manufacturing manager, quality manager. And then all that was from 1988, 2008. All those years, I basically worked in a culture of weak character. There was no leadership development. There was no character development. My entire 20-year manufacturing career, I was never exposed to all the stuff that I talked to you about. It's why I'm so passionate about it. I never even knew anybody who worked somewhere that they did any kind of development like this. And not one single leader ever shared this type content with me, even on an individual basis. And if you've heard the story, and I talk about it, I write about it in my books, a frontline entry-level quality technician named Zach Sharrow took my iPod, loaded a bunch of music on it in 2005, and when he brought it back to me, he said, I put a business book on there for you. I said, what is it? He said, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I said, is it any good? He said, I don't know. I ain't ever listened to it. But my friend's dad said it was really good. So I put it on there for you. That's how I got introduced to this. But I didn't even listen to it for 3 years until 3 years later when I resigned my 20-year career and started my own lean manufacturing consulting business. And I was looking for clients, and it just happened. You know, Les Brown says coincidence is God's way of staying anonymous. So maybe it didn't just happen. But it come across my stereo screen when I had my iPod plugged in. Dr. Covey started talking. First, there was no music. This man started talking. I'm like, what in the world is this? I looked at the screen, and it said 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And I remember 3 years back when Zach gave me my iPod back and put that 1 hour audio on there. I said, he told me that was a business book. I'm starting my own business. Maybe I should listen. So 12 years later, I'm doing what Dr. Covey was doing. I'm writing leadership books. I'm speaking on stage. I've spoken at Yale University School of Management. We've had, you know, I've told you before with the Navy. Rhea and I have spoken to 80 top leaders from a $3 billion organization. All those 80 top leaders held a PhD in their respective field of responsibility. And they had all traveled to the U.S. from 40 different countries. It's a big operation. We got to do a half-day workshop with them on my book, 10 Values of High-Impact Leaders. I don't tell you all that to impress you. But I started sharing that story because I'm talking to you about how do you build a high-impact culture. And I'm telling you, 20 years of me working for multi-billion-dollar global organizations, I was never even introduced to this by any of the formal leaders. That's sad. But like I told you, why could those companies become multi-billion-dollar organizations without doing this stuff? It's because most, if not all of their competitors, none of them are doing it either. But as soon as one starts to do it, they separate themselves. They may not put the others out of business, but they're going to climb to a whole completely different level because they're going to start attracting and retaining top talent. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Next week, we're going to do the second half of this. Remember, this week, becoming a sought-after employer. And then next week, we're going to tie the second half, becoming an employer of choice, which is the foundation. You got to do that to make this happen. Talk to you next time.
Make it happen or someone else will. It might as well be you. Are you serious about taking your career and your life to the next level and beyond? Check out Mack Story's Blue Collar Leadership series books and others, now available on audio, along with paperback and ebooks at Amazon, iTunes, and Audible. Please visit bluecollarleadership.com to learn about Mack's books, programs, special offers, certifications, and more. Thank you for listening to the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast.